I hope I don't get into too much trouble tonight, huh? That's the kind of trouble I like. It is truly an honor to once again participate in support of this vitally important organization. Never in its 10-year history has the work of APLA and others on the front line in the battle against AIDS been more needed. Unfortunately, the fight against AIDS is not going well. Medical breakthroughs have been excruciatingly slow in coming, and more than a decade of suffering has left our community decimated by this plague. But fortunately, we have an administration that has pushed through a 20% increase in money for research and raised funding for the Ryan White Health Care Act by 66%. In his AIDS Day speech last month, President Clinton responded to a heart-rending article in the New York Times magazine by reporter Jeffrey Schmalz, who had already died of AIDS at the time of publication. "I'm dying. Why doesn't someone help us?" Mr. Schmalz had written. I believe that this president will meet that challenge because he has embraced people with AIDS in human terms rather than dismissing them as annoying statistics, or worse, the enemy. Faced with a distraught heckler during his AIDS Day speech, the president empathetically said, "I'd rather have that man in here screaming at me than having given up altogether." Jeffrey Schmalz also wrote, "Where once Washington doors were closed to AIDS activists, they are now open, and AIDS sufferers are no longer treated as immoral lepers." But much more needs to be done. As President Clinton said, the best thing we can do for people who are living with HIV and living with AIDS is to pass a comprehensive health care plan so that people don't lose their benefits. And that is the all-important task which the President has entrusted to the woman you honor tonight, Hilary Rodham Clinton. Not since Eleanor Roosevelt have we had such a role model of universal compassion. The connection between the two most outstanding first ladies in our nation's history is not accidental. Hillary Clinton has written that Eleanor Roosevelt was her inspiration. Not to take anything away from the memory of Mrs. Roosevelt, but she had 12 years in the White House, and Hillary Clinton has had only one. But what a year. What a year. And she still has 7 more as First Lady. She was voted the most admired woman in the country as the public has witnessed her seriousness of purpose, her genuine warmth, and her stunning intellect. For the first time in our country's history, we can imagine a woman president. But it won't be easy because, as the carping criticism directed at Hillary Clinton has demonstrated, the competent, intelligent woman is still a threatening figure in our culture. Despite the fact that she dazzled the Congress with her knowledge and her eloquence, mastering the intricacies of health care, the most difficult social policy question of our time, some critics still want to discuss her hairstyle rather than what's inside her head. Go figure. The trivializing attacks on her are the same made on Eleanor Roosevelt over 50 years ago, picking at the fluff of image rather than the strong fabric of substance which both women possess in abundance. In 1992, the all too short year of the woman, I talked about stereotypes in a speech that I gave for women in film as they apply to women in my business and the so-called uppity feminists everywhere who would dare to invade the powerful world of men. And I said, language gives us an insight into how women are viewed in a male-dominated society. A man is commanding, a woman is demanding. A man is forceful, a woman is pushy. He's assertive, she's aggressive. Well, when it comes to AIDS, those seemingly negative words become positive ones. Thank God Hilary Clinton has been aggressive in fulfilling the task assigned to her by the president to provide health care to the tens of millions of Americans who have been excluded from what should be the world's best medical system. Thank God she is pushy about eliminating restrictions based on pre-existing conditions, including people who are HIV positive and people with AIDS. Thank God she's demanding that we emphasize primary and preventive health care to avoid disease rather than only responding when the disease is already rampant. But Hillary Rodham Clinton has brought us something just as meaningful as those qualities of superb competence and energy into our public life. She has brought a sense of the importance of community and shared values. The Washington Post said, she is looking beyond policy to a moral agenda. She talks about virtue and personal responsibility and being connected to a higher purpose. Amazingly, she has been mocked for this by some, as if public policy, like life itself, can have meaning without a deeper soulful base. For more than a decade, the reliance of our presidents on selfish individualism led us into the wasteland of official indifference to the suffering of many. One stark result of that politics of contempt and neglect, driven by homophobia, is that millions are now afflicted by the AIDS epidemic, which might have been contained if only our high officials had cared. So now let me introduce someone who clearly does care. Someone who represents the unlimited possibilities for a woman to be all that she can be. A loving wife and mother, a daughter, a sister, a lawyer, a leader, and yes, even glamorous. Please welcome the First Lady of the United States, Hilary Rodham.
Thank you so much. And let me also just say a personal, very personal thank you to Barbra, who gave one of the most wonderful women I have ever known, my mother-in-law, one of the best years that she ever had, particularly at the very end of her life. And I will be always grateful, Barbra, that you shared your love and your talent with a woman who meant so much to me and my husband and a lot of other people. You know, when I have heard about the Commitment to Life Award in years past, I've always known that it represented a commitment to life. And it seems that we will continue to do all that we can to affirm and reaffirm life, no matter how difficult the times, no matter how hard the challenge in front of us. That certainly is what Los Angeles has done in the last weeks in response to the earthquake, and it's what many of you in this audience and millions of others have done, living with HIV, living with AIDS, struggling every day against great odds to commit yourself to life. 2 years ago, before my husband was nominated, I had the opportunity to tour APLA. I went there with our friends, David Mixner and others, to witness firsthand the work that APLA does. I left that more committed than ever to do whatever I could and to help my husband do whatever he could, to see that we could give the kind of love and support and resources that APLA does every day, day in and day out, to the thousands and thousands of people who need the kind of help that has been given because of the support of all of you tonight with this extraordinary fundraising event. But you know, any joy or satisfaction that I or anyone takes at the work that APLA has done has to be ambivalent and tempered. For I wish, despite all the good work of APLA, that there was no such thing as APLA, there was no such thing as AIDS, and there was no such thing as HIV. But that hope and that wish cannot be realized yet. And so we have to do more than hope, and we have to do more than wish. We have to face reality, we have to know what we're up against, and we have to do all that we can to turn the tide against a plague that knows no boundaries. It infects our children and our elderly, our rich and our poor. It has ravaged the lesbian and gay community, men and women of all races living in every country and community around the world. For most, if not all of us here tonight, the names that we have seen and recited, some out loud, some just quietly to ourselves, have meant the loss of people we have cared about. We have been forced to watch as AIDS and HIV have stolen lives and precious hours from those whom we have cared about, and we have said goodbye far too many times. Yet among all of the darkness, and yes, the despair, the alienation, the frustration, the anger, there is hope. There is the hope that is brought by APLA. There is the hope of each one of you who has reached out to support and care for someone else. Every single one of you has made a commitment to life. You've shown courage, and especially those who are living with HIV or AIDS, every day demonstrate courage and strength to us. You are not alone. When others closed their eyes and sometimes their hearts, the members of APLA reached out. And now we are trying very hard to take that spirit that has been APLA and spread it throughout our country. You are not alone, because we have tried in the year that we have worked to bring change to Washington, to bring change as well to how this country thinks about, views, and feels about AIDS. For the first time, We have someone who has been appointed to coordinate policy, who is with us tonight, Christine Gebbe, who has worked tirelessly to take policies that were non-existent, uncoordinated, uncared about, and bring them together to try to work to stop HIV transmission, to care for those already infected, and to work as hard as we can to find a cure. The idea of finding a cure has to remain at the forefront of our efforts. I have personally talked with scientists, researchers in the government, in our pharmaceutical companies who are working day in and day out. This is an extraordinary challenge. We need to do all we can to spur them on. And we need to continue to provide the resources that they need in order to make the breakthrough that we know we will someday see. As has already been mentioned, the President has increased overall AIDS funding and has increased the funding for the Ryan White CARE Act. But we have to do more than that. We are aware that people with HIV and AIDS need comprehensive health care services and that these are too often too difficult to obtain. We have worked very hard this year to develop a national approach to health care that will guarantee health security to every American. And in order to do that, we have to pass legislation that will, once and for all, make it illegal to deny insurance to people who need it most. The insurance companies have been allowed to discriminate for too long. Health care costs should not be decided on the basis of whether you are young or old, sick or well, or have HIV or AIDS. Health care costs should not be determined by whether or not someone in your office has cancer or AIDS. In short, health care costs should not be determined by insurance companies. They should be determined by people's needs, and they should be allocated fairly to every single person in this country. Every single American citizen must have insurance regardless of health status. And under the President's approach, all Americans, every single one, will be able to enroll in any health plan of their choice and receive the comprehensive benefits package at the same rate paid by anyone else in their community. That package will be portable so that people with AIDS or HIV or any other chronic disease can keep their coverage regardless of where they work, when they work, whether they change jobs or even lose their jobs. They should not. They should not have to worry when they learn they have any disease, when they need their insurance the most, that it will not be there or will run out, because we also intend to prohibit lifetime limits on insurance policies as well. We know that we cannot yet prevent people with AIDS from suffering and from dying. But we can and we will prevent them from going without care, and from knowing that they will be left alone when they most need to be cared for. We can guarantee comprehensive health coverage in this country. It is a disgrace that we have not done it before now. There will be many in the months ahead who will argue that there is no health care crisis. You tell them that you know there is. You who support and work with APLA see it every single day. You see it in the eyes of those who come because they've lost their jobs, they have no insurance, they need your help. There will be some who argue that health care should not be a right, that certainly it should not consist of comprehensive benefits that include continuing coverage for chronic diseases, that it should not include mental health benefits and counseling and drug and substance abuse help. And I hope you will tell them with one very loud voice that the days when Americans turned their backs on each other, denied reality that was staring us in our face, walked away from problems because they were unpleasant or difficult to deal with are over. We are now creating a new American community. One that is willing to take responsibility, willing to care, willing to have courage, and willing above all to recognize each other's humanity. Maybe even insofar as possible, to put aside the differences that divide us and try to work together, love each other, and create a better future for ourselves and our children. That's what APLA has demonstrated day in and day out. That's what each of us is called on to do as we leave here this evening. And that's what this administration and this president intend to get done, no matter how hard the obstacles, how difficult the challenge, because we know there are millions of people whose lives will be better, will be longer, will be filled with more hope and joy if we stay on the road we are on and do all that we can to deliver health care and beyond that to rebuild the American community for all of us. Thank you all very much.